Hi, this is Riggs Eckleberry. I'm the founder, CEO of OriginClear, and in 2018, we launched a division called Modular Water Systems, which is now part of our amazing startup, Water on Demand. And recently, we commissioned a competitive analysis of modular water systems, which was very, very comprehensive. Fully half of it is about the industry and the space it's in. And the other half, of course, is about modular water systems itself. And it's very, very compelling. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. So this is the state of the wastewater treatment market, decentralized wastewater treatment plant market report, or wastewater treatment processing. Either way, they're used interchangeably, prepared by Justin Abrams of the Aereo Consulting Group yesterday, the 23rd. Here's the table of contents. He went really high level, state of the water market, supply side and demand side, factors of risk, market size, and then finally, slide 49 gets to modular water systems. So very comprehensive. Water scarcity. And as you can see, there is a big problem in the usual places, the Sahara, etc. But look at North America, look at the United States, the entire West Coast, and also the Midwest. That's the Ogallala Aquifer that's drying up. So not great. And then down through Mexico and Central America, and then along the western flank of South America. So that gives you an idea of how things are going. Let's take a look. Water use is increasing at exponential rates. Water consumption is outpacing population rates. Why? Well, the fastest rising usage there is in manufacturing. So population is growing. You can see at the bottom here that we've gradually gone from 2020, 8 billion, and it's gradually, the growth is slowing, but manufacturing is growing fast. So you can see how agriculture has actually been dropping in terms of overall share, domestic only growing very slowly, electricity use growing somewhat, but manufacturing really taking off. So that's really the area of highest demand. And of course, it's where we're operating. Desalination. Everybody tells me, what about desalination? Desalination. Okay, let's take a look here. The idea here is, this is the San Diego water sources. So they had almost all of it from the Metropolitan Water District, with some from this San Luis Rey water transfer. But then you see how it diversified in 2022, and it'll end up being further diversified. Now, seawater desalination is the orange, which is 10%. You can see this a great deal. Now, what is the growth factor? They're trying to get this conserved water going, and also recycled water is going from 5% to 7% by 2045. So they're trying to make it work, and desalination is part of the picture. However, here's the issue. The cost is very high. Now, what this slide says is desalination is still providing less than 15% of San Diego's water supply, despite aggressive expenditures. As you can see, the cost per acre foot, that's 1 acre, 1 foot deep, is more than double for desalination versus Metropolitan Water District or QSA, which is the Colorado River source, which is 75% of the system. The desalination plants are very capital intensive. Here's the Carlsbad. It cost $1 billion to build, and it costs $100 million a year to run. We can't have dozens of these, not easily. Well, we can, but the federal government's not spending money on water, so and states don't really have the cash. It really only works for Middle East and North America, the North Africa states, where they're both wealthy and drought prone. You see, Saudi Arabia has a huge percentage, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, they're all big users. And they can afford it, and they have a desert, so that works for them. Plus, I might add, they don't have a NIMBY problem, right? Not in my backyard. The Huntington Beach desalination plant that was worked on for a decade was then canceled because of neighborhood problems. Well, that's not a good business model, right? So that's desalination. It's not a simple solution. There's better there. Like, for example, what about recycling? We'll talk about that. So we need more water. The current model is centralized. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but basically it's, everything flows into a municipal sewage treatment plant. And that's kind of solves it for millions and millions of users, resident industry, et cetera.
And this is the complex process, tried and true, adopted standard for all water treatment, and it's very stable. Remember that back in our, when we first got into water, we started using a technology coming out of the algae industry, which is solids extraction, meaning originally algae extraction turning into sewage extraction. We were technology focused, and we found that the water industry is very happy with this. They don't need new stuff. They're like, this is fine. And that's why we had to go to a more market-driven model. Now, centralization comes as a cost. Why? Well, the direct costs are less, but they don't adapt to change, and they're very fragile. And that's where we see these things like Flint, Michigan, et cetera. And what you get is this magic quadrant on the right here, showing that current water infrastructure is designed for low quality outcomes and slow decisions. So yes, on the left-hand side, highly centralized systems benefit from economies of scale, but they're very fragile. Whereas on the highly decentralized system benefit from randomness, risk aversion, and feedback loops. So that's what that's about. Basically, you have fast decisions and high quality outcomes. And frankly, when it comes to public health, that's what you want. This goes on about the decentralization versus centralization mix. Again, we have centralized is theoretically lower cost, but decentralization is more responsive to market needs. So you see that the more you decentralize, the more you are responsive, right? Centralization's cost benefits stem from having one touch point. However, anything that naturally requires many touch points ends up costing less via the centralized process. So that's what it is. Factors like hyperinflation rates, water recycling, and an ability to provide uniform standards makes it much more viable to go decentralized. All right, let's take a look at water centralization, of course, is the big model. And this is what's called a Pareto distribution. The Pareto principle states that for many outcomes, roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes. Like, for example, 20% of your sales force generates 80% of your sales. That's kind of the same concept here. Worldwide, we've tended to build very large centralized plants. Look at China with all the red dots. Look at Europe, America. On the right-hand side, America, at 1.5% of all plants account for half of all water treatment. And 23 million people are served by 80%. Here's what's going on. Up 200% since 2000. And I've been talking about this. College tuition and fees. Literally, water and sewage rates are now exceeding college tuition and fees in 2023. This is insane. This is a bit technical, but basically it gets into the typical use, which is you don't see much reuse. There are some planned reuses, but the de facto is basically what actually happens, which is a very small percentage. I'll get to that in 1 second. This is a bit geeky, but it's kind of fun. This is the water recycling. Look at this. The black column is the internal freshwater resources per capita. And that is how much water is available and used by individuals. So Australia and the United States are very high, but look at the white squares is how much they recycle. Look at the United States. Whereas if you look all the way over here at Israel, very low water usage, super high, 80% plus on the water reuse. That's the correct model. And they've achieved it. Because water is provided via public funds, there's been massive underspending. Capital has lagged. That's the blue line. Whereas the green line is because capital is not being invested, operations and maintenance spending, O&M, is rising fast because you have to keep fixing what's broken without actually putting in brand new infrastructure. And the feds are funding things less and less. And by the way, in the last 10 years, it's all gone from grants to loans. All right. You've seen these slides before, basically a huge gap. Annual capital investment needs, $129 billion. Well, the actual gap is $81 billion, right? So we're spending $48 billion. We should be spending $129. We have a gap of $81. This is crazy. But look how much it's going to grow. The gap will grow by $500 billion by the end of this decade. 5 major supply concerns. We'll get to the demand concerns. The 5 major supply concerns are centralization, single point of failure, massive increase in cost, less than 1% recycling, and a crumbling infrastructure given a D+ score. So here we go. On the supply side, we have problems with climate and weather patterns, which I got news for you. We are having disaster events are increasing constantly. These figures don't lie. We can debate the reasons why and all that. We can debate how we handle it. That's very political, but that's a fact. Now, what's happening is this is really dramatically affecting water. Water stress occurs when demand for water exceeds available amount. And sure enough, we have a big risk, growing risk in the United States. Take a look at this. January of 23 to July 23, all right, water stress. But take a look at where it's going. If we have business as usual by 2040, take a look. Here in January, you saw how the West Coast had, very little water scarcity. But by July, and that was because of the big rains we had, by July, that was bad again, right? Now, take a look at 2040. Here we have bad all over. It's pretty horrendous. Change from the baseline right here shows you the darker red is 2.8 times or greater increase in water stress. Very bad news. And you don't want to be in Haiti, by the way. It's a very bad place. It's being, Haiti, Cuba. Florida's not too bad. But look at the Midwest and the West, Lord. All right, water stress is a global issue. Again, look at all the stressing happening in Europe, North Africa, Asia, Australia, China. Now, migration. I've been talking about this a lot. Take a look at how we have, migration from metros to the suburbs. And so we have growth of, inbound move rate is on the right-hand side map is blue. The exodus is in red. And this is a fascinating chart, but it shows that things are changing. What's happening is migration to the south and to suburbia and exurbia, meaning semi-rural, where there is no real infrastructure. Now, prior to COVID, there was growth of metros. That has reversed. Here you see how the blue is counties that have increased in migration, and the red is where they've decreased. And this is bad news for the big cities. Reshoring. Firms are bringing production back home because Ukraine war, trying to slow down. And TikTok, I'm not exactly sure why TikTok got a piece of it. But nonetheless, so reshoring is where it comes back. Nearshoring is where it's being located, let's say in Costa Rica, not too far away. Reshoring really includes North America, including Mexico, because that's really part of our shores. This tells us that the foreign direct investment is rising fast. So again, there's investment going into the United States. The blue is the reshoring trend. So far, 1.6 million jobs have already come back to the US since 2010, whereas there's still 6+ million to go. Regulation, townships in many states are enacting fast and sweeping legislation to protect citizens and reduce risk. Absolutely. But this is creating expense for industry. And finally, stressors to a centralized system almost entirely affect industry and agriculture. Why? Because they are 90% of water consumption. So increased water rates is a threat. ESG, you only get an advantage if you are doing your own treatment and reuse. And finally, lots of regulation. So wastewater treatment plants don't get there's not a lot of voters in a wastewater treatment plant. Industrial benefits of decoupling, of course, are direct on the left-hand side, both in lower water costs as well as more recycling. On the right-hand side, we have ESG score, environmental, social, and governance score increases. And again, you might or might not like ESG, but it is a financial factor, and corporations get better funding, cheaper money if they are ESG compliant. Public perception, and of course, they can control their compliance costs. Okay. There's this ESG thing. I won't get into it, but basically, water stress is one of the environmental. It's the environment, part of the environment pillar for ESG. And assets under management are growing fast, and that's what makes ESG very, very important. 20% of investment will be ESG compliant. Massive growth engine in downstream investments. This is why we're going to see a lot of adoption of things like water recycling by industry. It's already happening. All right. Now, this is, again, I'm not going to get into it, but this is all the stuff that what is causing utility rates to grow so fast is, frankly, a lot of complexity in the utility system. Here's the Human Development Index, which basically shows if you're underdeveloped, that's on the right. If you're developed, it's on the left. If you're up, it's residential. If you're down, it's industrial. And you can see that lots of migration for developed nations, that's we just talked about that, plus for businesses, lots of new business parks, et cetera, reshoring, lots of fines and regulations, et cetera. On the right-hand side, underdeveloped nations don't have water infrastructure. And bottom right is the manufacturing movement, pivots out of China, et cetera, and startups moving away from New York, Boston, San Francisco, and Chicago to Texas, Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Now, here's an example of a typical Deer Island. This is like when you build stuff now, this is the Deer Island treatment plant, number 2 in the US. Well, it cost vast amounts of money. And the gallons per day, in the case of this plant, is 1.2 billion gallons per day. That's huge. It serves all these locations. The problem is all these communities have vastly different needs and so forth. This is in central Massachusetts and also on the coast, Quincy, Boston, Nahant, Cambridge, and so forth. So all these areas are very, very different. So you're trying to do a one-size-fits-all for 2 million residents. Centralized wastewater treatment plants rely on expensive teams because it's very highly expert. And what if they don't have the resources because they're too small a township? Well, they're in trouble, right? And at the very bottom, as briefly mentioned, the silver tsunami. 7 million people in the water industry are retiring right now in the centralized wastewater treatment from the utilities. So what happens now? And this gets into all the reasons why decentralized is better than centralized. For example, funding speed, much faster, much less of a burden on wastewater treatment engineers on staff. Again, that's the personnel issue, the silver tsunami. Climate risk, much more adaptable. Migration trends, able to drop in place when booms occur. Same thing with reshoring manufacturing trends. Adapt to new regulations faster than bills can become into law, which is good. And built for decentralization, highly adaptable, et cetera. So that's why ACG believes there's massive potential water demand via decentralized method. But is the market large enough? That's a very good question. All right, total addressable market. Now, the analysts worked with us to take a look at the markets where residential, both in fast-growing municipalities and mobile home parks, food production, campgrounds, miscellaneous manufacturing, government limits, military, where we have a big presence, and it adds up to a total market size of 64 billion. The total market size, the total addressable market is 290 billion. The serviceable addressable market is 84 billion. And the penetration rate, service operable market, is 64 billion. This is, there's a graph I'll show you later with that. And best in breed residential, that's worth billions right there. Fast growing townships and mobile home parks. And that's an error there. It should not be mobile park homes, it should be mobile home parks. But nonetheless, by fast growing townships, we also mean housing development. So we have the total available market, the service available market, and service obtainable market, which is the realistic one. You got about 250,000 organizations. It's about a $61 billion market. I think we're okay with that. I think we're happy. We'll go with that. That's fine. All right. Now here's a video. I think you'll enjoy it.
Gas stations, travel plazas, campgrounds, all of those types of facilities, once you get outside the metro areas, are on their own as far as their water and wastewater utilities are concerned.
Everywhere where there is detached installations, it makes sense for them to have built-in black water treatment and, of course, the ability to recycle.
They don't want to be in the utility business.
Yeah.
They want to run their campground. They want to run their business.
Traditional way, you're looking at 2 years for construction, maybe up to 3, and then you have like a 20-year lifespan usually. These treatment units here are warranted for 50 years.
I was introduced to Dan early. He just really had this cool concept of a turnkey package where they included all of the design and produced a modular plant that was shipped to the construction site, built to the spec. All the contractor had to do is dig a hole, pour some concrete, set it, and plug everything in.
It is a plastic tank that was dropped into a big hole cut into a 40-foot shipping container. It's very easy to send that down the road. Low maintenance, once or twice a month. There's very much that can be done remotely.
Be able to take pre-engineered, prefabricated solution that can handle anywhere from 2,000 gallons per day up to 50,000 gallons per day.
Honestly, I was amazed. I was really looking for the easy button so that we can focus on doing what we do best.
The process is sophisticated, but it's very user-friendly.
Did not expect to get the level of a complete package being delivered in a prefabricated building with all wiring, parts, and components ready to go when it arrives on site. Everything worked seamlessly. Right on schedule, if not a bit ahead of schedule. The price was excellent. The fact that this was a pre-engineered solution was fantastic.
Contractor could probably do this whole thing start to finish in about a week. They don't really see any value in looking anywhere else.
Clean water was being produced within hours. The engineer that was there, as well as the service provider, were absolutely amazed. They had never seen this before.
Each one of the situations, whether we were in Thailand or we were in Djibouti, Mauritania, the delivery and the design were both simple yet sophisticated. Be able to start that thing up in a matter of 6 hours. It was incredible and a real testament to the design and the engineering that Modular Water puts into their products.
The treated water that we produce from our systems is of the utmost quality. It has the appearance of almost being drinking water quality.
The word's getting around on how efficient and how the production of the water is so pristine.
I think as the news of this spreads and it becomes more widespread and public utilities, but also private landowners realize the affordability of this product, the great construction and reliability of it, and the ease of installation, I think it's going to become much more prevalent.
It's been a great ride so far and cannot wait to continue the relationship with Dan and Modular Water.
So it's just like a miracle.
All right. So these are the factors that really make MWS far better. Look at the build out time, look at the build location, basically on site, right? Money Bag Melton partnerships, very nice, great job. Point of delivery, again, very diverse. In this case, currently we are using a single point because we have a network of fabricators that we're growing. We're using that HDPE, high density polyethylene or polypropylene, that's depending on the temperature. Very flexible. Now, 60% of all projects are designated as basis design due to high degree of standardization and plug and play. Thus, the lifespan, 75 to 100 years. We're still relatively small. Average number of FTEs, full-time employees, relatively small, but we're fixing that. And of course, patents. We have patents and others often do not. This is a turnkey solution. We've been over this before. Here's the team. You know us, myself, Tom, Dan. In addition, of course, we have a great CFO, et cetera, but this is on the operations side. Again, decentralized wastewater treatment. This container can handle a whole housing development. Boom, just drop it in place. And if you want to add modules, just, more community, just add more modules, no big deal. Look at the small footprint of these. Complete plug and play. That is a beautiful thing. Here's another illustration of how they grow just by like Lego blocks, right? The installation is in as little as a day. They build the pad, you drop this in, connect it, you're done. The analysts like the look and style, which I love. That's fine. This is very, very well built material. Compare it with, like, this is concrete. Takes forever to build. I was in New York City in the 80s when they were building the West Side sewage plant, and it took years. We just watched this thing grow and grow, and of course they had very little land, but they managed to find some on the West Side, and it took forever. I'm not going to play this video, but basically this is box options in the marketplace. It's fun, but they're still cumbersome to ship. And then here, differences in players. So this analyzes all the different players, different price points, total cost of ownership. Some people do both wastewater treatment plants. Some people do only pumps. The pumps guys are not on this list, but we do both. And residential, commercial, manufacturing, industrial, all these things are being handled. So a nice long list, very build customization. That's an actual big strength of ours and highly scalable. And by the way that Dan Early, even with this small team, is getting all these sales is because, see at the very bottom there, he does webinars, which have really become highly desired because they also give people they get course credit for these webinars for their continuing education. These are some of the verticals at the applications that we operate in. As you can see, we have a very good spread. Some areas we're just not in, like supermarkets, but oil and gas, that's very specialized space. So we're in plenty of spaces for sure. There's another competitor, which is rotomolded plastic versus HDPE, high density polyethylene. The problem is they have the lifespan, but they have massive limitations. They're much smaller. And you have to build a mold for each, and molds are expensive. HDPE, best overall solution. They say higher price, but actually we've become price competitive, and we have, of course, patents in the area. This is marketing. We won't get into it. And here is the core differentiation. We have a massive advantage in terms of time to build, which is much shorter, and the lifespan, both. So you get the product sooner and it lasts longer. Patents, 2 of the non-core patents have expired, but they are being revived. And really, that combined with related trade secrets represents Dan Early's ability to bring visionary thinking to the industry. Valuation, with some ungodly amount of money. Here's the positioning in the marketplace with modular water system, relatively simple, does not require a lot of sophistication, which is a good thing, and price is low. Whereas you get at the top right, very sophisticated, very expensive. I think that you want low sophistication with low price. All right, so now that this is the magic quadrant. So up is ability to execute. To the right is completeness of vision. Right now we have the most complete vision. However, our ability to execute has been limited by relatively, we've only started this in 2018, so it's still growing. And we have a capital plan for acquisitions that we've spoken about that will get us there, but we have to make the acquisitions, and that will bootstrap us right up into the leaders. So right now we're visionaries. We need to go up into leaders. These are some of the strengths and weaknesses of the players. And as I mentioned, this weakness for modular water, smallest competitor, without much ability to scale, without extensive capital infusion, which we believe we are addressing very aggressively. This is the big thing going on, which Ken, if you don't know about it already, get briefed by Ken under NDA, and he'll tell you all about it. I won't get into all the other stuff, but in general, by far the best materials and total product. Most buyers don't need something for 75 years, but it's attractive with price competitive. So they go, hey, I spend about the same amount of money and I get a 75-year product. It's a win-win. All right, these are all testimonials that I won't go over. They basically, you saw the montage. These are clickable videos that people can play. Then we get into SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. We're getting close to the end of the hour, so I won't go too deep into this. Basically, strengths are visionary, annual growth, about 4x annual revenue growth in the past 3 years. Product strengths, opportunities, do more marketing, get more manufacturing going, get licensing going. Then over here on weaknesses, currently we're near capacity and we need to continue to staff up as well as get our manufacturing going. We need to acquire some of these HDPE plants because limited fabrication base in the US, but that's something we can deal with. Again, scalability, when you have one guy selling, that's hard. We can fix it. In terms of threats, large competitors, maybe trying to get around the patents. International presence, we need to get in there. And it's a difficult product to sell directly. We usually go through a middleman, and which is our strength. And obviously, government and municipalities have different buyer needs. And the reason why we still sell to those people, even though we do decentralization, is because of the pump station business. This discusses how modular water was acquired by Water on Demand, so that modular water is part of Water on Demand, which in turn is a subsidiary of OriginClear.
Well, that was the presentation that I made in late August at one of my CEO briefings. And you'll see that it really was, for us, a extremely validating experience. So I thank you for watching it, and do stay in touch. Just go ahead and make sure that you register for my weekly CEO briefings every Thursday night. And if you can't watch it at that time, we have replays. So just go to oc.gold/CEO, register, and I hope to see you there.